morning, everybody. I want to continue with pensions, but I also want to highlight class structure, and I tagged Angus Reid, who just did a massive poll survey across Canada on class, on Canadian class. Now, the thing is, Angus Reid, like a lot of Canadians and First Peoples, look at class in the lens of what's codified. And what do I mean by that? Well, that's what's written in our laws and in the words put to paper in our system. But there's a whole underlying system in Canada that offsets everything written. And that's called the uncodified laws of Canada. And to learn this truth, one has to take comparative law. So you have to go to law school, and you will get to learn, as you meet many professors from around the world, about comparative law. That means let's compare our country, Canada, to the rest of the world. And when you add history, you start to learn exactly what our system is comparatively to everybody else. And that brings you to class structure, something not highlighted by Angus Reid's survey. And it's not his fault, like so many Canadians. He's very talented, a genius, so to speak, in his own right. But Canadians, our Constitution alludes to the unwritten truth within the opening sentence of our preamble, our introduction to the Canadian Constitution, which, for everybody here, that's your highest laws of the land. And that opening preamble tells you we will base this system off of the British Empire of old to the betterment of their society and model ourselves after their society and their system. Well, folks, the UK is entirely an uncodified constitution, I mean unwritten. House of Lords, through all of their elected, it's all on a specific class structure found in lots of literature throughout the years. Never amended, never removed. And they go by first, second, third class. In fact, they go in to tell you how to get in and be a member of the first class. And that is much different than what's codified in Canada. It's much different than what's in Angus Reid's most recent survey across Canada. And that is the idea that absolutely it's who you know, whom you're connected to, because to be in the first class, not only do you have to be wealthy, you also have to be well connected. You have to be a personal friend inside that class. Otherwise, you need to be a famous Canadian. You must have access to all the classes, and everyone must view you and know you. And if you're not famous, you're not in the first class. That also goes for all of our appointments, folks. You have to be wealthy, defined as a first-class citizen, meaning your annual income is well above $280,000 a year. It means you have to be somebody inside the political establishment or of royal descendancy from the UK, or 3, you're famous. Again, that's truth. That is unwritten rules of governance. Absolutely. You will find all the Crown appointments in Canada follow this to a T. And you'll find over and over patterns. Friends and family of a sitting Prime Minister or Premier or Cabinet member or Parliament or House of Commons, Senate. It goes on and on and on. Or you'll find there's lordship titles from the UK or throughout the Commonwealth. Somehow this person's connected. You'll find this in almost all of our ambassadors. You'll find it in our justice system. completely. And that's how it works. It's how it's always worked. And nobody ever addresses that. But a number of us have. We've chased the history. We've chased the backgrounds. We've chased what's limited in written literature, in written laws, because they let slips go. For example, in Alberta, that's always existed, class is there. And it's the class on the first, second, and third class. People commented lots, and there's lots of messages I have to catch up. But on pensions and people saying what's fair and what isn't fair. Well, I like to look at the United States of America and the 401k. And what that is Americans, if you follow your 401k laws, you get involved in that, you can see maximum 401k monthly payout tremendously more than Canada's CPP. Do they have to pay more per month into that system? Yes. But legislation on that law, no matter how you go about it, it's between employers and employees. So employers match the contributions of the employees towards their 401k. Now, CPP's older. Anybody born after 1947 was automatically put into CPP. You had no choice. Now, it's an earlier model. It's a ground model. It lists a maximum level of income you can put in for annually, and it's listed. Well, when you look at third class, yes, a lot of Canadians will never, and I repeat, never achieve it, because the bar is higher than the average of the third class. Now, easily, almost all the second class is there, absolutely all the first class is there, and in the cost of living and inflationary factors, which are in there, your CPP is to cover 25% of your retirement savings to get you through, and it clearly doesn't in today's day and age. When you look at the maximum possible of CPP, most of what's defined as third-class Canadian will never achieve it. Your labor and toil, you have to put in 39 years minimum at maximum contributions. Well, that eliminates most of the working third class in Canada. You may get your 39 years, no problem, but you'll never maximize your contributions. In fact, a lot of Canadians fall quite short of that. About 35 Canadians fall short year after year. So since 1947, many Canadians will never ever achieve even half their maximum allowable CPP. This is not the same in the United States, Canadians. Many more Americans not only achieve their maximum contributions in their 401k, but the 401k payout is substantially more than Canadian CPP. And there's other things you need to know about what I call that's codified. And this is absolutely written. Now, maybe Angus Reid could read about these things. I know it's not traditionally his area of expertise, but for lawyers and constitutionalists in Canada, let me tell you something about your CPP and the rules of governance over the management of CPP through the CRA Act, the Canada Pension Act, and then the Act on the commission that runs your CPP. Did every Canadian know that it's because it's a provincial power and it was codified by the federal government, they gave the power to the largest province, that you need the largest two provinces to okay anything by more than 2/3 to see any changes. While for the Maritimes, for Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, you will never, ever have a say in CPP. you will never, ever have any oversight on how that's managed or what happens with your money, how it's invested. None of you in any of those provinces have a hope of ever having a say. And since Quebec opted out and did the Quebec pension plan right off the get-go within just a few years after CPP, that leaves one province absolutely in charge of the CPP and its management and any and all changes made to it. And that's Ontario. That's Ontario. Nobody else really has a say. I think beyond that, second place goes to British Columbia. And you can see in current world events and what just happened with CPP in its last summer amendment, that clearly it's BC and Ontario who are doing the best right now in Canada, and how things are set in trade and in resources and everything else. A lot of people don't realize that. An Alberta pension plan could be done, or any province could do its own pension plan. There's no doubt about that. But the issue is, how do you get there, and how do you get there amicably for everybody? There's one problem that exists from the CPP, which is again colonial, and that's the idea that not everybody's fairly going to be represented by that pension. And if they're not fairly represented by the CPP right across Canada, no other plan will fairly represent anybody either. Because remember, your CPP is the starting point, and it's also the 25% requirement just to make a normal, relatively stable retirement for any Canadian. So if you're not there on the 1308, you go on CPP's website and you see the inflationary maximum contributions per year every year, and you find you fell short over and over and over again. If you've gone more than 7 years out of traditionally 47, or 8 years, sorry, from the 47 years that you could from 18 to 65, and you're short 39, let's say you're 38 on maximum contributions or more, you're finished. You're finished. You will never see that minimum required 1308. And again, just so you know, in the United States, on their 401k legislated for employers, employees, it's almost $1,671, I believe, and that's USD. So when you do the conversion, their retirement easily meets and exceeds the cost of living of today. So if you were a 401k person in the United States and you were faithful with it, you're going to make today's inflationary problems no problem. A Canadian maximized on CPP, and if all your other pension plans on top of that, you don't make it. Should that terrify minimum wage earners, those in the lower third class? It should terrify you, because it means the government's got to pay the tab. A lot of employers don't like pension plans. People say it's not fair unions have pension plans and I don't. But the reality is that's a problem with what happens with unorganized corporations who don't have any accountability. Right now in the United States, Elon Musk is going through it as he grows on his way to trillionaire status. He's not the only one. There's a lot of companies that the U.S. is starting to look at it that we need to legislate unionization. We need to help that along, because there's no other way to fight this wealth transfer to a wealthy elite. And before people get mad and say, oh, I don't want that, you know, a lot of people contract their whole lives. They don't invest in any kind of retirement at all. And I know this very personally, for whatever it is in my life, my relationships, I always seem to end up with nurses or those in mental health nursing or just regular nurses. And my longest running relationship, the mother of my children, she works in mental health. And of course, while we were together, I got to see decades as we go to her Christmas parties. I got familiar with her clients and her work. I got to see the relationship of what happens to Canadians who can't afford to retire on their own. They require extended care and all of that. And it's not a good thing. And that costs taxpayers a tremendous amount of money. And we know CPP can't cover any of it. You go to any kind of long-term care now with pensions the way Canada is, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. You're going to have to be subsidized largely by the working Canadians of today. And these are all hyperinflationary factors and reductions in the cost of living of those today and those of yet to come. And it's brutal, and the government keeps borrowing against those people. Right now, the United States of America, the federal government is borrowing tremendously against the American people. And so far, things are able to keep up, things that were established long ago, but for how long? Now, Canada, you're way under the 8 ball. At 1308, if you can make it, which, again, most haven't. In fact, I think the average right now is 717. All Canadians in, which means there's a tremendous amount of third-class Canadians. The bulk of the pyramid have not a hope in heck of retiring comfortably. In fact, retiring in poverty. That's the reality. And that's the reality of the unwritten Constitution of Canada, that only the Privy Council, who's all that upper first class, and all your cabinet ministers of every province have access to. They don't publicly disclose behind closed doors what's said and what's done to the betterment of the United Kingdom today, basically the British Empire, and the carryover of the crown. I was thinking hard about how can I personally educate better, and I think I've come up with a good idea using King Charles III, making a video that I post on YouTube, a colorful one with a voiceover as close to King Charles III voice, and it would be like a children's video or book, but it's really for all Canadians and all First Peoples. It's not to minimize people, but we're all like children in any topic when we've never seen it, we've never been taught it, it's been kept from us. I call it institutionalization by the said crown. When I talk about crown, I mean it federally and provincially. Little crowns carried over from the United Kingdom in this Commonwealth, and Canada's one of the worst, the most secretive, the most literally undemocratic about it. They hide it the best. They're very good at hiding it. Nazi Germany didn't hide it for very long. South Africa got away with it for about 30 years. And I could go on and on in many countries. Canada's probably the most successful at keeping it below that 3% threshold that activates the Allies of World War II. Canada's very good at being like, I guess the best analogy would be like a mouse in the dinosaur time. They carried on because they squeaked by relatively unnoticed. And I think that if I did a video like that, and I have a King Charles III face there, and I have a voiceover closely representing his voice, and we go through it step by step from the position and historical position of King Charles III, as it should be said, I think maybe that would really go somewhere. Maybe, I don't know, but I think that's what I have to do. Like a children's video and audio book, visual representations in the first person, in the perspective of King Charles III, like if he was a real good king and he explained the whole Canadian system to Canadians. And who knows, you know, I don't know. I was up late, upset the other night, and it kind of came to me. I thought, you know, I could write a book, but I'm not a very good writer. But if I wrote it like a children's story, and I wrote it like a first perspective King Charles III, what would he say if he was 100% honest? How would he explain Canada to all Canadians and First Peoples and to the world? And of course, don't hold any punches. Tell it like it is, 100% straight, and tell it as if it was King Charles III explaining what Canada is and how it's gotten to where it is today and what it is in relation to the world and what it is itself and what its federal and provincial crowns really are. And maybe that is what it takes. And, you know, take it down a notch, plain speak it, but add that British royalty to it. Maybe it'll go viral because Canadians still really latch on to that. They really like that. And I think maybe that's the path forward. Anyhow, I'm rambling and I'm on my way to work here this morning. So God bless everybody. Have a great day. Share. Tons of information there. Again, read the commissioner laws on those who oversee the CPP and learn the powers that are vested in only a couple provinces and some of the things that Canadians don't know about preferential treatment of different provinces. And again, you can't blame Quebec for this. They have their own pension plan. God bless everybody. Have a great day. Bye now.